Thanks for listening to Marketing Evolved. We're excited to be back in 2020 and once again here to weigh in on the latest marketing news and trends for small business. 2020 is a big year for Generate Marketing as we are celebrating our 10th anniversary in the industry and serving businesses predominantly in the Midwest. So a warm and sincere thank you of appreciation to all of our clients and supporters over the years. One segment we'll feature this year is Marketing Flashback, where we will wax nostalgic on some trends from the previous 10 years and have a little fun with what was and what trends never quite made the cut. On our podcast today, we have Jason Peterson and me, Holly Peterson, and Van Dang, who is a greenhorn to our podcast and any podcast for that matter. Hi, Van.
Hi.
Hello, Van.
So tell everyone what you do at Generate.
I'm the content manager here at Generate. What I really do is I curate all content that comes in, from videos to written to imagery, and that goes through social, newsletters, websites. I even help write copy for new websites that we are helping with clients. So I'm
cool.
Essentially all content.
Yes, you are.
You
are
even shot some video. You've done some photos.
Yeah.
True.
You do some light design when you're doing design stuff on things. You're just kind of a jack of all trades.
He's getting to be.
Yes.
Well, and I think that's kind of an important aspect too, because we're talking a little bit more about content today. Jason
I'll
has
talk about
some
that.
information about it, but just what content really embodies. It's not just text. I think when people think content, that's what they think about, or pictures even. But it's kind of all of the above. Mm-hmm. It's curating content for social, for websites, all the above. So what is one thing that people don't know about content on social?
For businesses, I would mostly say that the big thing for them is they like to maybe focus too much on their services or the products that they specifically sell. Mm-hmm. And they kind of lose track of the idea that social is meant to be people social kind of thing where you're having fun. It's not too stuffy. That doesn't mean you don't highlight your services, but you do it in a more socially acceptable way where maybe they don't feel pressured or annoyed with what you're posting.
Totally. So what's the most difficult thing about generating content?
Unfortunately, we're not always there is probably the thing I'd say is the most difficult thing. That means I can't capture all of the videos and photos I'd like for all of our clients. So really that relies on them to pick up the slack for us in a sense. Mm-hmm. If they can provide us with some type of detail with those photos is the other big thing. Just because if it's just, it's kind of a blind fly for me on that one. If they just send me a photo.
A rando text.
Hey, do this. I don't know.
I'm like, I need a little more detail. Well, and that's a good point is even if you hire someone to do your social media, that doesn't mean that your job is done. Mm-hmm. In fact, honestly, that's just the beginning because yes, we can curate it. We can create even a lot of it. We can get markety for you based on some existing things that you have and knowing, what you do, but we need the social aspect of it. And so that does just by nature imply that we need stuff on a regular basis from our clients. I mean, if we're talking about being consistent and authentic, which are two of those key words that we use all the time with them, it is important that we're getting a regular, and it's just, it could be stuff going on just at your office. It could be a quick snap with a client or a customer. This isn't rocket science, but it is stuff that needs to be curated on the client end where we can't be there all the time. Jason, any input on that?
Yeah, I agree with Van. I think the bottom line is people still get too salesy and social. I think that's the number one thing we see is that they overthink it. And in most cases, people kind of already know what they do. I think you have to spread that out carefully in terms of doing it more from an education and from a helpful perspective. I think in general, that's kind of something we preach anyway. But I know for Van and yourself and myself, for the last 10 years, it's been people tend to forget and don't capture those opportunities when it's like a birthday or there's a business lunch, and we're guilty of it too. We almost forgot to take a picture today.
Picture.
Yeah, I was going to say we almost forgot. But I think it's that, and then just they just perceive that social media has to be too salesy. And I think in general, that's the biggest thing that I try to fight upstream on is That's not the place for it.
Well, and again, if you're going to be salesy, there needs to be some sort of probably educational aspect to it. I mean, if you're going to get salesy and you're going to talk about really dig deep on what you do, take that educational approach really. I mean, that's helpful for people. And industry expertise. You can't get enough of that. If you have competition out there and someone's weighing maybe choosing you over another, then show them that you know your stuff. All right, let's move on to current affairs.
Ooh.
Today is President's Day, as a
Yes,
matter
it
of
is.
fact. So I believe our resident historian, Jason, has a few fun presidential facts to throw out there. Go
Yes.
for it. I
I
know
was gonna
you're
say,
eager,
so
clearly.
I can say courtesy of the Lincoln Journal-Star,
Yeah,
which I
true.
do read every day. Most people think I'm just a digital boy. I read the newspaper every single day.
I'm going to start calling you Digital Boy.
Digital boy, whatever. Nerd, misfit, whatever my name is. So anyways, they had a really good little feature on some unknown facts about presidents. One of them that, again, focused on Abraham Lincoln, given that we are the city of Lincoln.
Lincoln.
That's right. Abraham Lincoln was a registered bartender. He actually owned a bar in the 1830s, I believe.
Co-owned it, correct?
Co-owned it, correct.
And where was this?
Would have been in Illinois. I don't
Okay.
remember the exit. They didn't say the city. I mean, that's where he's from.
Just thinking about Abe, like behind the bar, like doing.
I
some
know. I
tricks
got the
with
little
his-
got the little
Doing the
apron
cocktail
on and
Flipping it
stuff.
around.
Spinning the.
Like he's doing his thing.
Or listening to people's woes,
Right.
which would have been many at that time.
I got some good ones here. Okay, so then another one in the same vein of Abraham Lincoln is Theodore Roosevelt was extremely admirable of Abraham Lincoln, and one of his close constituents. This is that weird, but like somebody had gotten a lock of hair of Abraham Lincoln's,
Supposedly.
and it was like in a locket or something. I don't know what it was in, but essentially he carried that with him the entire time. He had a little locket around his neck.
Had a locket.
He carried
Abe
this with
Lincoln.
him like his
That's
entire
how much
life.
he loved him.
I know. I don't know. It was like
I'm not
superstitious.
sure on the locket. I
Well,
just
whatever.
A little heart.
Well, what did he carry it in?
What's inside your locket?
I'm like, he had to have something that it was inside of. Who knows?
Maybe
It
he
was
made
in-
like a rabbit's foot
it
out
was in
of
his
it.
pocket.
It's kind of creepy that
It is a
just
little creepy. So
or just a piece
he's
of
like,
hair.
And people
anyways,
say it's their hair. Do we really
who
know?
knows? So anyways, there's kind of a odd one, but it's about Abraham Lincoln. Another funny one was Martin Van Buren, which is kind of a lesser known president. His thing every day is he would get up early and go skinny dip in the Potomac. And he literally, it was not necessarily, he wasn't too bashful. So everybody knew that was kind of his thing. So that's a
dude likes
little
a good time.
I guess.
I guess he had like some looky-loos maybe.
Maybe
oh,
so.
There's the president.
Maybe so.
Doing his morning swim.
Now, the other one I thought that
That'd
was
be cold in the winter. Ooh. Was he
Is
like,
like-
a polar bear dude?
I don't know.
Polar plunge, you know?
The origin of polar bears.
It might be a seasonal thing for him. I'm not sure. And then the next one, and again, who knows like what he may have struggled with, but Herbert Hoover, again, he's president from the 30s during the Depression. He was like adamant he did not want his staff to ever see him. So all of his management was done through assistants. So like, I don't know if it was social anxiety. I'm not really sure, but needless to say, his staff would hide in closets and things like that to make sure that he never like visually encountered with them.
How bizarre.
Yeah, a little
He wasn't
odd.
a super liked president,
No,
though.
no,
I think
his-
of like the Hoovervilles and things like
some
that.
of his plans on economic reform kind of fell flat in the 30s. So at any rate, that was a little odd. That was a little strange.
Yeah, that's pretty odd.
I posted some fun facts today for
Okay.
one of our clients. And Teddy Roosevelt was the first to ever ride in a car as a president.
Ooh.
And his cousin, FDR, was the first president to ever fly in a plane as a president.
Wow. And then I think the other one that was interesting I saw was Jimmy Carter was the first president born in a hospital.
Oh gosh.
Wow.
Wow.
First one ever. So we're
Oh,
talking.
that's interesting.
That's. I want to say he was born. He's older than my grandfather. He's like
He's in his
1920.
90s,
Yeah,
isn't
he's almost 100.
yeah.
He might
And
even
he's
be
still
99.
working for Habitat.
I know he is.
He's amazing.
1921, I think, is his birthday. But anyways, so there you
Wow.
go. There's my presidential
There.
tidbits, and I like that one, Van. That was a good one.
All right. That's kind of like a little tech version too, because that is kind of curious. All right, next topic. A fan favorite, coronavirus. And I'm being largely sarcastic. We haven't talked about it, and obviously it's growing in infamy. as people are infected. There's the whole latest cruise ship thing about 14 U.S. citizens that were on a cruise ship are actually infected, basically. So they have been exposed and they are testing positive for it. And so they've been evacuated to the U.S. finally off this cruise ship that's been floating around begging people to take them into port. But that's actually not what I'm going to talk about. Coronavirus as it relates to sort of our current affairs section that we do. The question keeps arising. Okay, so we've got all of our Amazon Prime people. Let's face it. 85% of that stuff's coming from China,
That's
usually
right.
that we're ordering, and people are concerned, or the question has been, oh my gosh, can I get something that's being shipped from China? Can I get coronavirus off of something? So
Great
if it's
question.
been handled or someone's been infected by it. And I went straight to the CDC source. We're not going to we're going to dispel myths here, get the correct information, the facts. Apparently, coronavirus has poor survivability on surfaces. And so the likelihood of getting contracting coronavirus from something on, that was handled or on the surface or something affected in China is like nil to none. And there has been no recorded cases. And think about all of the things that have been shipped from China, literally on a daily, hourly basis for that matter. So if anybody out there is concerned about that, or wiping down backpacks, or any not Van.
Hey, safety first. is
Safety
all I
first.
didn't
You know
know.
what?
So in case that has come up or has popped into your head, which I know it has in our office, there you go.
I think the thing I read this morning that was interesting is that some of this had been kind of held back. The knowledge they had of this going on in China was for a longer period of time before it was made public.
Oh, well, isn't that the case?
Yeah, it's not surprising.
Russia.
Right.
Nope, there's no Chernobyl here. Or
That's exact. I was thinking of the
there's no-
same thing. There's no health risk.
No, it didn't blow up. No,
Watching a
no.
beam of light go into the sky. Anyway. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Today is or I guess it's my topic turn here.
Yes. Go
So
for it.
my topic of the day, growing your followers. This has come up a lot actually in some of our client meetings as far as like Facebook and Instagram. People who actually may be getting over to a new platform for the first time, we kind of call it graduating from one to the other as they kind of get the rhythm for one of their main feeds down. And the big concern is, well, how do I grow my followers? Like I don't have anybody. And so this has been a topic of conversation lately. And honestly, it's evolved too over the last 5 years, I would say. When Facebook first started out, it was a big deal. It was the main platform, of course, that and Twitter, to get as many followers as possible. And if someone hasn't heard of it before, there used to be literally like follower farms that existed out there where people would get paid to follow pages. And then it was an issue of, well, that's not a quality follower. So that obviously you had these inflated pages with all these followers, and like all these followers were like in Malaysia or China or wherever the case was, Bangladesh. So obviously it's evolved. The importance now is quality over quantity. So even if you have a smaller follower page, that's okay. We're more concerned about engagement. But obviously, if you can get more people to catch wind of what you're doing, bring attention to what you're doing, there are some great tools out there for that you can tap into. So now that we've dispelled the myth of quantity versus quality, engagement is important too. So as you're building your followers, as you have your core set of followers, that's the other thing that's really important then is to, as we sort of alluded to and talked about, quality content, making sure that what you're doing is engaging, maybe we're educating, that sort of thing. So that's really important that you're keeping an eye on that and truly getting to the people aspect of what you do. But there are some back-end ads. There's an ad center. If you guys haven't taken a look at that on Facebook, there's reach over into Instagram since Instagram is owned by Facebook. But there is some really great tooling on the back end there that you can tap into. And that's actually been doing some good stuff for our clients. As far as growing that following base. And as it relates to growing the following base, as you're using those tools, you can tap in to industry-specific things. You can tap into your key demographic using those tools. So these are quality, real followers, and they're not just followers that are on the back end that, Facebook is basically buying on your behalf. So if there's any sort of apprehension about using any of those tools, we give it the thumbs up on our end. There's no worries there. And then again, if you haven't, or you're looking at getting into Instagram, make sure that you're taking the time to marry your Instagram page to your Facebook page. It's going to be super important too. So you can get some love on the Instagram side, even as you gradually work your way over into getting into Instagram, and even vice versa. Some people are on Instagram wanting to now start moving over into Facebook. And if I can't reiterate it enough, please, please, please take time to look at your insights. They're there. They're not as hot on the Instagram side, but they are there for Facebook. So please take time to do that. That is on the back end of a business page. You can't do it. It doesn't exist for a personal page, but you can access that information on the back end of a business page. Any thoughts, guys, there?
Well, I think like you mentioned that I remember when it was like a arms race to get as many followers as you could.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about this, and I talk about this a lot in the front end when I'm trying to consult with people, is the tools and the sophistication to be able to get in front of the right people in terms of, like you said, the page promotion, or it's promoting a website or whatever the case is. But I know that page promotion thing in terms of its secret sauce algorithm, or however it does that to grow your fan base. We've seen that as to be as successful as even sometimes more than just promoting a specific post.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
So I'm with you. I really like the direction things have headed. I know Facebook has a minimum number of fans you have to start qualifying. I want to say it's like 50 or 100. I can't remember.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty small. Gosh, you can start off your page with just sending it out to friends, asking them to like your page and follow your page. So they used to be a little more grudging on exposing some or giving you some of those tools to use, but they're not anymore. Obviously, they want your money because it does cost money. As little as $1 a day, though. I mean, for $30 a month, you can get some pretty decent reach and exposure and get in front of people who wouldn't necessarily have known or seen your posts. So it's a really good tool to tap into, and there's lots of different options, from followers to promoting your business locally to promoting your website and your Facebook page. So again, look at it, tap into it. If you don't understand it, raise your hand, ask us for help. We're always happy to jump in and help and talk with you. But yeah, just let us know. All right, Jason, what is your topic of the day?
So my topic today is, and it's kind of related to what we were talking about earlier, is content.
Like I said, content.
Content. So again, let me explain and describe what this means. So the role of a creative, again, I'm dating myself. I was in college in the 90s, so that was the era of where graphic design and the internet was just occurring. So a lot of the skill sets that were in demand for marketing professionals were web developers, designers, more on the kind of visual creative side of things.
Yeah, establishing your visual baseline, really.
Yeah, so like, it's not that the messaging wasn't important, but it kind of took a back seat because... and I would argue in general, when print was more predominant and prevalent, copywriters were always there, but they weren't necessarily, they were kind of in the background.
It was like the final thought on whatever branding you were putting out there.
That's right. I mean, if you go to an ad agency, it was always the creative director. They were the ones that had the sexy role in the title, and they had kind of all the cachet. So what has changed, and not surprising, is that as in evidence of Van's role, is the generation and curation of content is essential to the effectiveness of a marketing presence for a small business, or any business for that matter.
Any business, yeah.
And ultimately, the skill set that's required has evolved significantly. So I tell people it's, just painting a pretty picture. I mean, a lot of designers, and clearly you have to have visually creative skills. There's a huge demand for the hybrid skill set of websites and design and so forth. But at the end of the day, content is king. And more importantly, the engaging content, which we tend to preach about all the time, determines the success of your marketing strategy. So I think it's kind of cool, and this speaks to you, and especially you, Holly, is that designers have struggled with this. I mean, I think as a designer, everybody still wants to be the king of the hill, but the reality is that how cool your brochure looks does not dictate the success of your marketing strategy or engagement. So you've seen this rise in basically this skill set of being more of a content designer. meaning they still have some design skills, but they're in the spirit of generating content, writing content. So it requires a heavier knowledge of the written skill set
Absolutely.
versus just the design. Now, that doesn't mean the design isn't important, because we know Van deals with design a lot and stuff and so forth. But it has definitely changed, and there's very much a deficit of this. So the question becomes, for our listeners, if you're a small business or a business that's larger, is what does that marketing person look like? You know, we have some clients that, you know, or people that we don't help. They may have a part-timer on staff, or they may have a full-time marketing director. Is that that role has evolved. So it's really important that if you have somebody or hiring somebody, they need to truly know how to write. And be creative in the spirit of coming up with ideas
Or
of what to
worst case
say.
scenario, at least know how to proof.
Out of proof, because nothing can be more of a detriment in terms of putting out, you know, unpolished content. We know that that's a big no-no. But more importantly, you look at website content, is that 20 years ago, it was very pedestrian. I mean, Google and its keywords and the way that functioned, and even 10 years ago, it was nothing like it is now, where Google looks at a website like it is the actual consumer or audience. So how you write content has to be much, much more of a priority. And I think in that same vein, that's exactly why we've had Van have a much more assertive role in helping our clients write content, where before we just had people submit stuff and it was no big deal. Now we take a very proactive stance in that we know is how it's written is just as important as how it functions and how it looks.
Well, what's interesting too is, like you were talking about, just going back a little bit, with that role of a designer.
Yes.
That used to lead the charge with every other, you know, marketing aspect.
Yep.
But what's interesting about that is that it's evolved in such a way that the designer is almost kind of like one and done. The website's kind of one and done. Now, we always preach the fact that your website's never done. That's not what I'm saying. A content person is never done.
No, it's a never ending
It's
job.
never done. It's never like wrap that project up and let's move on to the next one. Great mark, great branding. Let's move on. Nope. It's literally like an hourly, daily basis kind of thing. It's never done. There's, again, like, even if you don't have a dedicated content person, at least have someone on your team that's good at proofing, because if you're going to need to pull from other team members to get some of that content that maybe they specialize in and that your content designated person can't write themselves, at least have that person be able to proof that copy and put it in an intelligible kind of more social perspective, that when it gets out there to your clientele, that, you know, that's something that they can engage with.
So Van, question I have for you is, when you were in school, like, how did they explain how marketing worked? And now that you're with Generate, how does it really operate? I'm always interested, because for me, I'm far enough away from college that it's a whole different universe.
Are you dating yourself again?
I am. What can I
Digital
say?
boy.
I'm
dating himself.
There you go.
43
Dun, dun,
recently. But for you, I'm always interested, because for a lot of our employees, which we're totally for, you end up kind of mentoring them and evolving them into sort of what's current or relevant. But just kind of your thoughts on that.
I think they were still pushing the distinct lines where you were either a graphic designer or you were a marketing manager of some sort, like where you would be curating it. But you wouldn't, I wouldn't say they push the idea of a hybrid, or that you need to be able to work in both sides of it, where it's design and written. I think the big thing that I learned was, obviously writing is very important, but I did have the opportunity to take some design courses, and the way the teacher or the professor was going about it was that it was still the king. Like, it was still the forefront of how you display yourself as a company or a business. That's the most important thing. That it's still maybe not the content side of it. It's this splash imagery, catch a person's attention, get your name across, and then it'll come afterwards. Like you'll get the clients or the leads to come in regardless, because they saw your name. Maybe not so much now. I mean, I think a big thing is one of our clients had said that I think is really true is the older generations used to rely on the salesman to give them the information that they just believed. And we're in an age where we have everything at our fingertips that we want to know firsthand. We want to read reviews. We want to do all the research ourselves. That if you don't have quality content, if you're not explaining or really showing how you do your job or how well you do your job, you're kind of shooting yourself in your foot on that one.
I totally agree. I think it used to be just this idea of repetition and saturation. You just plastered somebody so you had awareness. But you're right, is that as the generations evolved, I mean, I think we're kind of that in between where we want to do our own research. We want to decide, okay, great, somebody's saying they're good at that. I heard this, but what's the substance?
Yeah. In fact, salespeople kind of annoy me sometimes because it's like, you're going to tell me what you want me to hear.
That's right.
I mean, that's not necessarily what I'm looking for.
Well, I think
selling, right?
We run into that. Like, I mean, as you know, most of our listeners know, you help with AdWords, and something I talk about all the time is, I mean, the old advertising agencies, they marked up media, whether they would broker radio or newspaper or even the Google advertising. We don't do that. So whether somebody spends $50 or $500 on Google advertising, there is not a bias from our perspective. So when you have all these Google people call, sometimes that are not, their angle is always going to be to get you to spend more money. So I think that's the part that is challenging, is who do you listen to? But I think, to your point, Van, I think that it's kind of like when I was in my career where the hybrid designer developer was kind of an upcoming trend, where when I was in school, it was just designers. And all of a sudden you had technology, and now you have, and we look at Chelsea and some of the people that work for us today, they are purely hybrids. They're designers and technologists.
Those are the golden people.
Those are
not the designer.
Right, just one. But I think now you're going to start seeing a hybrid of a content generator who's a designer and written. And traditionally, those are two completely different disciplines. But again, if we're talking to people that are trying to get a job, the competitive advantage is if you can do both or understand both. If you have a little bit of understanding of, hey, I got a smartphone and I can help document some pictures for a client event, or grab some video for them, or I can design a newsletter to make it look. That to me is, again, if you're just pigeonholed in one particular discipline, or the person you hire, they're going to have a limited perspective. So
you're limiting yourself, and you're limiting how people can use you as far as your, marketability from a personal standpoint.
So to sum up, that's hard to find, but I think for our business listeners out there, just as much as you can, make sure that the resources you're trying to get in touch with are more diversified in their skills.
All right. Flashback, 10 years.
Okay.
Time for our flashback segment. What do you got, Jason?
All right. So there's all kinds of golden nuggets. Everybody knows I'm a history nerd. So as if 2010, everybody knows I have these really stupid sayings.
Indiana Jones over there.
Yeah, that's right. So one thing in 2010 that was a big deal. I remember right before we started, my former business partner got the first iPad, and that was like huge. And part of it was there had been tablet technology before, but it was pretty junky. It was like Windows.
Kindle.
Yeah, it was Windows, was really awful and stuff. So everybody was predicting that laptops would be eliminated, which is completely not the case. The markets have changed, but fundamentally the function of what you can do on a tablet, and I know you've talked about this, Van, is your generation, they just use their smartphone and don't even, so they may not have the laptop as much, but they have their smartphone. But tablets are kind of more consuming content kind of thing. So Apple continues to push that iPad being a replacement, but that just has not occurred. So that's one big thing that was kind of a oops, that's not what was going to happen. Another one that I think is really amusing is, clearly in the time that we've been in business, smartphones were used more, not as much, or how do I say that differently? Smartphones were not near as proliferated through just consumer and business use. And most of the people that used them were not for internet browsing. It was BlackBerries that
scheduling, really.
Scheduling, contacts, calendars. I mean, I remember the days of the Palm Pilots where those things wouldn't even sync properly. So, so back then, 20% of all people had a smartphone. And now 75%.
Which just basically meant that it could do more than just call.
Right. It was a
could
scheduler.
send an email
It
or
had at
two.
least
Like-
one more feature.
Like, we'll do another thing on I think we talked about just the number of people that use internet access on a phone, which was next to none. And then the funniest thing is 50% of all the phones sold at that point in time were BlackBerry. And I know I was a CrackBerry addict at the time, but it just shows you that
Yeah, I did introduce that to you.
I know you did. I didn't have that. And when you and I got married,
We met.
yes, you're like, why do you not have a BlackBerry?
I'm like, you run a company and you don't have a BlackBerry?
And you know what's weird is not a lot of people did here. I don't know why it was, but at any rate, I just think that's really hilarious. Where back then, I mean, BlackBerry's pretty much non-existent now, but at that point in time, that was them, and I think the other predominant was Nokia and just kind of the standard flip phone.
Well, I had a Pebble.
Yep.
I had I had
You had
two.
you had a
I
BlackBerry.
had a CrackBerry for work, but then my personal was a Pebble. So
Yep.
Yeah.
So bottom line was that has completely transformed in the last 10 years. Some for better, some for worse. But the bottom line is I don't think anybody back then predicted that BlackBerry would pretty much go out of business, more or less. I mean, like I said, they do a little bit in security, but their smartphone presence is nothing. So there you go. Tablets, eliminating laptops, not so much. 20% had smartphones. Now 75% of everybody does. And again, 50% at that time in 2010 were BlackBerry, and not anymore.
All right. All right. So now we come to our question of the podcast, where we have people submit questions to us and we answer them to the best of our abilities. Feel free to submit a question to us. You could do it through our social feeds. You could do it through our website. You could call us. We don't care how we get your question, but we're happy to answer them for you. This one is from Tim. He asks, is it okay to be political on social media? We've touched on this a little bit before. We haven't necessarily taken a deep dive into it.
You want me to start on that one?
Politics. Yeah, go for it.
Well, I say this. I think some people don't, at least some people we've talked to, don't necessarily recognize the divisiveness that can be created if you push that agenda on social media. So if you do that, you just need to understand that if your audience is a broad spectrum, if you want to make that a sticking point to eliminate some of your audience, go for it.
Yeah.
But I think more often than not, people would argue that, hey, we want to have a broad base of consumers and customers, and
Probably not a good idea to alienate any.
No, so alienating your customer base is not a smart thing. So we tend to preach, don't talk about religion or politics as much as you can. I mean, at the end of the day, if something's, in a good thing that you're passionate about, but I say stay clear of the that's a landmine right now.
Yeah. Your personal page is for that kind of stuff. And Jason and I would even argue that not even your personal page is a great platform.
I think it really depends on how you are as a business. Like, if you're the face of the business, it's definitely not the place. If you're like a worker bee, still probably not great, but it's
Still not the
it's still a little better that way than anything else.
Yeah, I would say to Jason's point, I mean, if you really don't care what people think, and I mean really don't care, like you're going to lose business or you're going to turn away potential clients, then go for it. But I would say, even from a family member standpoint, I have some family members who insist on posting things politically, and I hide them.
That's right.
I mean, even from a personal standpoint, that isn't the place where you're going to change people's minds. I'm sorry. I mean, if you're just wanting to put your thoughts out there, well, there you go. Your thoughts are out there. And, it's going to fester with people. They're going to say hide you. They're going to want to hide you, or they're going to stop following you or interacting. Or you're going to get your people and your trolls who are more than happy to engage on that level. And that's the kind of that's usually what you're inviting. So it's a tough topic. Some people don't understand that, and that's okay. It's part of sort of learning the ropes of social, just from a business standpoint. And, digital marketers, we definitely say usually err on the side of caution and steer away from that kind of thing. I'm a little disagreement with Jason. He said faith-based things and political. I'm more of a hardcore no politics. Faith-based, I feel like there's a little more flexibility there.
I would agree with that.
If faith is a core part of what you do in your business, even if, you're into some sort of spiritual aspect, I mean, maybe you're a yoga instructor or something, and so there is some spirituality to what you're doing, that is going to be important that you put that out there. Not everybody's going to get it. Not everybody's going to understand it or feel like that's them. But to me, that's okay. Do you want to riddle it with all of your posts all the time? No, probably not. People aren't going to get that. But anyway, so those are my thoughts.
What do you think?
Social media is not a soapbox. I think it's a big thing to remember for a lot of people, and this goes for everyone. It's not just politics or faith. It can be health-related things. I know we've
Like
had
vaccinations.
Vaccinations came up on one of our meetings.
Yeah.
We all have our opinions. It doesn't mean everybody's going to agree with them, but if you're running a business, it can kind of hinder your ability to get leads. Yeah. If you get on your soapbox and you want to preach, just because you can be off-putting to some people.
Yeah. Just know there's consequences. I mean, I guess that's the bottom line. And
I'd
if you're
agree with
willing
that.
to face the consequences, then by all means. All right. So now we come to our question of the day as far as how we get to know our current hosts. Some of our hosts are changing on a regular basis. Jason and I are the same, but we bring in different people. We kind of take this time on a little more personal level and have a little more fun with getting to know people. Today's question really circles back around to some of our topics. Could you live without the internet? So that applies to smartphones. I mean, that applies to data, really. So, I mean, there's no website, there's no nothing. So putting that in perspective, Van, we'll start with you. You look like you have an answer.
So it's just funny that we recently I have been having conversations with my friends from when we were in high school and maybe a little younger. We used to do this thing, my generation, of LAN parties for video games, where it's essentially networking all of your gaming systems together.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't really an internet system set up yet
Yes.
for Xboxes or just video games in general, and I miss that. That's probably one of the most fun things that we used to do that I would think back is just getting, 8 to 12 people and just gaming, just having
sure.
a whole house
hanging out together.
Actually.
Yeah,
And I know
totally.
the internet kind of helped with that in the sense of you can be in different states and everything and still have your friend base, but there's something about being able to be next to somebody and give them a hard time about doing bad or something, just teasing them a little bit. And
Intention, right?
I think
it's so much more intentional.
yeah. I think the only thing I would really miss with the internet is researching things. Being able to if I don't feel good or if something, we've had this conversation today about my pet where I'm just trying to figure something out, what can I do to help her. That's the thing I would miss because let's be real, no one wants to look at an encyclopedia.
I know.
Go to a library.
Right.
Nobody wants to do that.
Well, Jason and I, we were just debating how old Richard Simmons was last night. And I could
85.
I could have sworn, I'm like, he's got to be in his late 80s. And so he's like, no, I don't think he's that old. And I'm like, man, we need to figure that out. And literally we have a Google assistant in our bedroom because we use it to listen to music, and our dog. We always give her some jazz music because she stays in our bedroom
She
when we
gets
leave.
the jazz playlist from Spotify.
But anyway, and so I was like, hey, Google, how old is Richard Simmons? Richard Simmons is 71. I was like, ooh, I was way off.
Wow.
But it was so simple. I asked it and there was the answer. So that is crazy. But my answer is yes, I could live without the internet. I mean, Jason and I are Gen Xers, so we know what it was like to live with the internet, without the internet. I did research papers with the internet, without the internet. So and we know we didn't have phones till we were in college, essentially. So there is a certain intention and simplicity to the world around you without the internet.
I think everybody enjoys going on vacation where they can completely disconnect,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That's kind of the frame of mind that we have to have if we ever wanted to live
Or
without internet.
I'm sorry, if you don't want to hear bad news today, unless you flip on your TV or pick up the newspaper and read it, you don't have to hear bad news.
That's right.
And I'm not talking about avoidance. I'm just talking about some getting back to the basics. using some of our sensories that we've kind of thrown out the door and said, you know, I am going to be inundated by information and being able to be at someone's disposal at all times. There's a certain numbness I feel like that comes with it in a good and bad way, but mostly kind of in a bad way, to be honest. So yeah, I could live without the internet big time.
So you might be surprised for me to say this, but I would say yes with one caveat.
No caveats allowed.
Wow. I mean, honestly, I, like you, grew up, I enjoyed some of the simplicity where that was not the jarring stuff. So even though, again, we work in this industry, I get to be very fatigued and tired of it at times. The one thing I am that is, I'm a lifelong learner. I love figuring things out. I love researching stuff.
Well, you better go pull out your card catalog.
Right. Decimal system.
No.
Where to get to that library.
Like Wikipedia, I think, is the greatest invention of all time. I'm not saying everything is perfectly accurate, but I love learning things. Like, if I'm going to sit and fix a faucet on the bathroom, I can find a YouTube video on how to do that.
Sure,
I think that is amazing. So for me, you know, everybody knows me. I can't stand email. It drives me crazy. Because I like to, like on the weekends, I shut it off. I was like, if you really need me, text me, but I'm not going to check my email.
Yeah.
But I think that for me, I really enjoy the positive part of the internet where you can use it for the power for good. I think what's unfortunate is there's such a proliferation of garbage out there now that kind of spoils it for everybody. But no, I mean, since Holly and I are old enough that we had a life without the internet. The internet didn't happen until we were in college. So,
I was actually in high school.
yeah, I'm a little older.
Whatevs.
Not much. But
for me,
no, I mean, your idea of the land party,
I remember
agree.
doing a paper on the Salem witch trials, and I used the internet. So
Yeah, see, we didn't. I was going to say, I don't think it even convert. Like, we didn't have that. Wikipedia was not even a predominant
it was basic,
source. But I remember trying to do, when I was a kid, a thing on the history of computers, and it was ridiculously difficult because there was nothing produced that even gave me information. Just like 1988. So like,
yeah,
like it was crazy. It was
what, a room full of computers?
No, it was like I had to just go interview people because there just wasn't there wasn't books. Haha.
Danger.
Digital boy.
Will
Hey, you know
Robinson,
what?
Danger.
We have the Throwback Thursday picture of me when I'm in 5th grade in front of the PC, so it's well documented. That was my shtick. But no, I'm with you guys. I mean, I think, like I said, when we do gaming with my friends, it was like we're all together. I missed out on the whole gaming online thing, so that's not really my bag either. But yeah, I think within that one aspect of figuring things out and learning more, I could do without the internet.
Yeah, our Dungeons and Dragons was literally the cartoon on Saturday morning.
Yes, Dungeon Master. The roller coaster.
They get in the roller coaster.
Yes.
I know what you guys are talking about, just to let you know. So,
Van can style flex back and forth. You have older sibling.
Yes, that's true. All right. Anything else to add to that, guys? All right. I think we're done today.
Thank you, Van, for participating
Yes.
in this podcast.
See how chill it is.
See, it's pretty
just
low-key.
talking, having
Low-key.
conversation.
It's very...
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right,
for
thank you very
listening.
much.